Okay, let's unpack this. If you're a developer, or honestly, maybe just someone who works with developers, you've probably, hit a wall with AI coding partners, right?
Oh, definitely.
Like you ask for, I don't know, one tiny change, and suddenly the AI decides to uh, rewrite your entire project. It's kind of frustrating.
Yeah, or it starts out strong on a big task, seems to understand everything, but then, halfway through, it just seems to lose the plot.
Exactly.
You end up with code that looks done, but it's full of bugs, or it just doesn't actually achieve the main goal.
Exactly. And don't even get me started on like trying to feed it a large code base. It just gets lost, like totally overwhelmed.
Yep. Common problem.
We saw notes actually pointing out these exact frustrations, the random rewrites, forgetting the goal, pumping out buggy code, getting lost in huge projects.
Those are definitely common pain points we hear about.
Right. So that's exactly where we're diving in today. Because what if there were tools specifically designed to not do that? This deep dive is all about Anthropic's new Claude 4 series, specifically Claude 4 Opus and Sonnet and their specialized platform, Claude Code.
Big names making waves.
Our mission to really understand what's fundamentally different here. Why Anthropic seems to be making such significant waves, specifically targeting the AI coding space.
And what it needs for you.
Exactly. And critically, we want to pull out the specific insights the sources reveal, things like quantifiable improvements, surprising new capabilities to show how they're directly tackling these common frustrations you might be feeling.
We've got some good stuff.
Yeah, we're pulling insights from some recent articles and reports, including perspectives straight out of the Code with Claude conference in San Francisco.
What's fascinating here is that according to the sources, Anthropic, led by CEO Dario Amodei, appears to have made a really deliberate strategic move. It's like a clear pivot.
A pivot from what? Trying to build like a do-everything chatbot?
Yeah, exactly. The analysis suggests they're stepping away from trying to compete head-to-head across every general use case, with the giants like ChatGPT or Gemini.
Right.
Instead, they've become laser-focused on one incredibly clear mission, to be the absolute best AI coding model available. The reports coming out are pretty consistent on that point.
That actually makes a ton of sense. Why try to fight on a million fronts when you could aim to dominate one specific area that's super high value?
Right.
And coding fits that perfectly because precision and reliability are just non-negotiable there.
Precisely. And the sources suggest this focused strategy is already paying off in results. They're highlighting demonstrably superior performance in areas like complex software engineering, really grokking large, intricate code bases.
Okay, so that circles back to the frustration we started with getting lost in big projects. They're saying this focus helps there.
Right. And also agentic coding, which means the AI's ability to work more independently on multi-step tasks, debugging its own issues, handling projects without needing you to hold its hand constantly.
Agentic coding.
And advanced tool use is another area they're highlighting.
And they're also talking about that massive context window, aren't they? What is it, 200,000 tokens?
Yeah, that's the headline number for the flagship models.
Yeah.
Now, just to clarify for anyone maybe not deep in the weeds, a token is basically a piece of a word or punctuation that the AI processes.
Right, a building block.
So a 200,000 token context window means it can essentially consider a massive amount of text at once, equivalent to maybe a really, really long document, maybe 150,000 words or more.
Huge amount of context.
But crucially, in the Claude Code terminal, it's described as being conceptually unlimited.
Unlimited. How does that even work? Is it magic?
Not quite magic, but it's clever. The sources explain the terminal, and SDK use this intelligent internal summarization. It doesn't actually load your entire giant code base all at once.
Okay.
Instead, Claude intelligently navigates, summarizes, and retrieves just the most relevant parts needed for the specific task you're asking it to do right now.
Smart retrieval.
It's how it can effectively reason over, projects with millions of lines of code without hitting hard limits you'd see in, say, a standard web interface chat.
Okay, that's really cool. Less getting lost because it's smarter about how it reads. Let's jump into some real-world examples the sources provided because these really show the difference.
It's a good idea.
They even started with a non-coding one, which I thought was a smart way to demonstrate the improved reasoning.
Yeah, the bike sharing data analysis demo using Claude Sonnet 4. That was pretty telling about its capability beyond just code.
Right. The task was to analyze this huge data set about a city's bike sharing program and come up with a detailed plan to optimize it for the next year.
And the really innovative part, according to the report, wasn't just the data crunching itself, but how Claude did it. It used what they call parallel tool use.
Parallel tool use.
It wasn't only looking at the numbers.
Oh, yeah. While it was processing the data, it was simultaneously hitting the web to search for best practices in urban mobility, looking up the latest tech for bike management, and even cross-referencing academic research papers on predicting demand.
All at the same time. Exactly.
Wow.
That parallel processing makes the analysis not only much faster, but way richer. It brings in crucial outside context that a model just looking at the dataset in isolation would completely miss.
And the output wasn't just text either. It was like a fully interactive dashboard.
Yeah, pretty slick.
And the reports highlighted some specific, fascinating insights it pulled out that were verified as spot-on accurate.
Like identifying that peak demand at 5 p.m. was a staggering 72 times higher than the lowest point at 4 a.m.
Wow, 72 times higher. That level of specific detail is wild.
Isn't it? And showing that 2.1 times more bikes are needed in the fall compared to the spring. It analyzed the impact of weather, and it gave concrete, actionable, strategic recommendations, not just vague, general ideas.
That's the key, actionable stuff.
And the source compared this directly to Sonnet 3.7 doing the same task, right?
Right. Sonnet 3.7 gave, observations like activities higher in the evenings, generic stuff.
Okay.
But it totally lacked the specific, quantifiable detail. No 72x higher, no exact peak time, no concrete plan.
So it's the difference between evenings are busy and demand peaks precisely at 5 p.m. is 72x higher than the early morning low. Here's how many more bikes you need in autumn, and here are the specific steps to address weather impact.
Exactly. That's a massive jump in usefulness.
Huge jump. And that focus on accuracy and specific, actionable detail, that translates incredibly powerfully to coding tasks.
You got it. Which brings us to the coding challenge they used to really test the models, the ant colony simulation. Sounds complicated.
It does.
It was designed specifically to push the models on complex simulation tasks. The prompt was to build a P5.js script that simulates an ant colony with ants following pheromone trails, avoiding obstacles, and including real-time user controls.
Okay, so they gave that same complex prompt to Sonnet 3.7 and Sonnet 4. What happened?
So Sonnet 3.7, they described it like a bicycle. It produced a basic simulation. It kind of worked, mostly.
Just kind of.
Yeah. Controls for things like adding ants were glitchy. The ants got stuck on obstacles constantly. And the code generally felt like a rough draft.
Right.
Functional, I guess, but not great.
And Sonnet 4, the Tesla comparison, right?
Yes, the Tesla. It produced a simulation that was smooth, responsive, and aesthetically way better.
Yeah.
All the features from 3.7 worked flawlessly.
Okay, that's already a big step up.
But the really impressive part, which the source highlighted, was that it added features the user didn't even explicitly ask for, but that significantly improved the experience.
Wait, it added stuff I didn't ask for?
Yeah, like you could click anywhere on the simulation canvas to instantly add a new food source for the ants.
Oh, cool.
It added a toggle button to make the pheromone trails visible or invisible, a really nice UI touch. And you can right-click on obstacles to remove them in real time, making the simulation much more interactive and dynamic.
Wow, it didn't just complete the task, it anticipated ways to make it better for the user. That's a pretty wild jump in capability.
It shows a deeper level of understanding, I think. Foresight beyond just literal instruction following. More like a partner.
Okay, so this obvious leap forward. The sources pinpoint 5 core improvements in the Claude 4 architecture that are the why behind all this. Let's run through those.
Right. First, they talk about significantly less overeagerness.
Oh my gosh, yes. The absolute pet peeve of asking for a single variable name change and having the AI rewrite half your file. The source specifically called that out as a common developer frustration.
Yeah. And Anthropic reports an 80% reduction in that specific behavior with Claude 4. It's designed to make changes much more surgically, much more precisely.
Surgically, I like that.
That's a huge efficiency gain for developers.
An 80% reduction. Okay, that alone is going to make a lot of people breathe a sigh of relief, I think.
Definitely. Second, improve memory and goal persistence. The example they used for this was fascinating. Tasking Claude Opus 4 with playing and actually completing the entire game, Pokemon Red.
Playing Pokemon Red, an AI, start to finish.
Yeah. The point was, previous models, given a similar multi-step goal like this, they'd start training a Pokemon, then maybe get distracted by, try to collect every item, or just wander off the main path, losing sight of the ultimate objective.
Right, loses the plot again.
Exactly. But Opus 4, the reports say, stayed focused. It understood the high-level goal was beat the game, so it methodically trained its team, battled the necessary gems, and consistently progressed through the game all the way to completion.
That is genuinely wild. And that capability translates directly to, like, complex multi-step coding projects, right? Staying focused on the main architectural goal.
Exactly. Third, superior instruction following. Even with huge prompts, they say Claude 4 is trained to follow complex, detailed instructions in prompts over 10,000 tokens.
10,000 tokens. That's like a whole bunch of code or a really detailed spec document.
It is. They tested it with a deliberately complex email prompt that had over 25 really specific, almost nitpicky requirements. Things like using a certain phrase exactly 3 times, or making sure a paragraph started with only the recipient's first name.
Oh, wait, you know, like those annoying emails where you have to hit a million tiny specific rules?
Precisely. And the source says Claude 4 followed every single requirement perfectly while still writing a natural-sounding email.
Wow.
Other models often just forget or ignore instructions that appear early in a very long prompt.
Okay, so crucial for developers feeding it, detailed requirements documents or complex specs.
Fourth, reduced reward hacking.
Reward hacking, what's that? Sound like your AI is cheating.
Kinda, yeah. It's when an AI finds a clever shortcut to technically fulfill the literal condition of a goal, but without actually solving the intended problem.
Okay.
The classic example is a cleaning robot tasked with making a room look clean, but it just turns off its camera instead of cleaning because then the camera sees a clean room.
Okay, I get it. It gamified the instruction in a way you didn't want. Lazy shortcut.
Exactly. And the reports note an 80% reduction in this type of behavior with Claude 4. It means you can have more trust that it's solving the problem robustly, properly, rather than just finding a lazy loophole.
Another 80% reduction stat? That's really significant. They seem proud of those numbers.
It points to a fundamental shift in how it approaches problem solving. And finally, they reiterate true parallel tool usage.
Right, back to the bike demo.
We saw this with the bike demo.
Yeah.
It's an architectural upgrade that lets Claude 4 use multiple tools or perform different types of analysis simultaneously, not just one after the other. Data analysis, web searching, knowledge retrieval, all happening concurrently.
Which makes those complex research and development tasks way faster and gives you much richer results. So less overeagerness, better memory, following instructions precisely, less cheating, and doing things in parallel. That sounds like they really targeted a lot of those core frustrations people have had with AI coding partners.
They really seem to have listened to the feedback. Seems that way.
Okay, so how did all these improvements stack up in a head-to-head coding test? The source described a pretty complex challenge. Build a gamified pixel art goal app.
Right. This app concept was kind of cool. Users set daily goals, and if they complete them, they earn XP, like in a game.
Standard gamification.
But if they fail a goal, their AI rival character gains XP.
Ooh, interesting twist, like an anti-streak.
Yeah. It needed features like an XP bar inspired by, say, Pokemon Red, weekly battles against the rival, on-demand battles, customization for the rival character, and handling different types of goals, like studying or working out.
That is definitely not a simple hello world.
Yeah.
That's a lot of interconnected mechanics. They tested 3 setups, right? Firebase Studio using Gemini 2.5 Pro, then Windsurf using Claude Sonnet 4, and finally Claude Code using Sonnet 4 directly in the terminal.
And the results, according to the source, were pretty revealing. Firebase Studio with Gemini 2.5 Pro, it struggled significantly.
Struggled how? What did it miss?
It produced a basic functional app. It tracked user XP, fine.
Hmm.
But, and this was described as a critical failure, it completely missed the entire rival XP system.
Oh, no.
Which, was the whole central gamification mechanic of the app. It also had issues displaying images correctly.
So basically unusable for the core idea.
It was functional, but incomplete and needed a ton of manual rework.
Wow, so it built like half the app and missed the core idea. That's not great.
No. Then they tried Windsurf, which is a user-friendly platform for Claude.
Like a graphical interface for using Claude for coding, right? Not the terminal.
Correct. And this was much, much better using Claude Sonnet 4. It produced an app with a clean UI. Both the user and the AI rival XP systems worked correctly.
Okay, big improvement.
The customization features were there. The weekly battle mechanic was included.
Okay, nice. Getting a lot closer. Sounds pretty usable.
Almost there. It had one minor issue reported. The battle timer was set to 4 minutes instead of the requested 1 minute.
Ah, a little detail off.
But the source noted that one quick follow-up prompt fixed that immediately.
So, like, a great starting point, especially for maybe prototyping or learning. Easy fix.
Absolutely. But the decisive winner, the report stated, was Claude Code using Sonnet 4 directly in the terminal environment.
Okay, the pro-level tool they're positioning, the
Yeah.
one integrated right in.
Yes. It got everything right on the first try. All the features, including the rival XP system and battles, worked correctly from the jump.
First try? Seriously?
That's what the source says. The interface was described as professional and clean. The timer was correct. Customization prompts were handled flawlessly.
So it just nailed the whole complex task on the first attempt. No follow-ups needed.
Nailed it, according to the source. And they really emphasized that the whole process felt seamless and integrated into a professional developer's existing workflow.
Which leads us to that idea of Claude Code being more than just like a code generator, right? It's positioned as a workflow tool.
Yeah, exactly. It's not just about spitting out snippets. It's designed to integrate deeply into the developer ecosystem. They talked about the SDK and potential for really deep GitHub integration.
Like what kind of GitHub integration? Reviewing code automatically, fixing bugs from issues.
Precisely. Things like installing a Claude Code GitHub app. That can empower the AI to review pull requests with context-aware feedback, automatically generate code fixes for new GitHub issues that come in, or even automate tasks like writing documentation or generating unit tests.
Okay, that's pretty powerful, like having an AI teammate who can help with some of the less glamorous but necessary parts of the job, the drudgery.
Exactly. And this is where that unlimited context for large code bases comes into play again. Using the terminal, or SDK, that intelligent summarization capability means it can effectively work with massive projects in your repo, going way beyond the, say, nominal 200K token limit you might encounter in a standard web interface.
Well, right, the smart retrieval we talked about.
And the productivity boost of being able to just work directly in your native terminal environment, not constantly copying and pasting or switching windows. That's a big deal for developers.
Yeah, gotta stay in the flow state, right? Minimize context switching.
Right. It really matters.
So given all this, who do the sources say this is actually for? They broke it down into a decision matrix, kind of helping people choose.
Yes, helping you figure out where you might fit in. For casual users or people doing general tasks, they recommend sticking with standard tools like the free tiers of ChatGPT or the basic Gemini web interface.
Why? Is Claude 4 just overkill for that? Or too expensive?
Pretty much both. The reasoning is that if you're mainly using AI for chatting, brainstorming, writing emails, or very basic coding questions, the cost and the higher usage limits of Claude 4's paid plans likely aren't necessary or worth it for those tasks.
Makes sense. Don't pay for a professional tool if you don't have a professional need for it.
Exactly. Then, for what they describe as vibe coders, builders and learners people, building prototypes, learning new tech, working on personal projects, the recommendation is using Claude Sonnet 4 through a user-friendly platform like Windsurf.
Like the one that got the much better result in the showdown, the one with the graphical interface?
Yes. You get this significantly improved coding capabilities of Sonnet 4, but via a more intuitive interface with visual tools. It's a good balance of power and accessibility for less intense or professional use cases than full-time development.
Okay, so that sounds like a great option for someone just exploring, like building a side project with AI help, maybe learning a new framework.
Precisely. And then for professional developers and engineering teams, the recommendation from the source is clear. Investing in the Max plan and using Claude Code directly in your terminal is where it's at.
The Max plan is the one around $100 a month, right? That's a commitment.
Yes. The reports explicitly position this as a professional-grade solution for serious software development. It gives you that terminal access, the potential for deep SDK and GitHub integration, handles massive code bases, and provides the most efficient workflow for day-to-day coding.
Right.
It's priced as a professional tool with an expected ROI in time saved and code quality gained.
Okay, so they're really saying the top tier is like a serious investment for serious developers who expect that return.
That's the clear takeaway from the source analysis. It's a tool, not a toy, at that level.
So it sounds really promising, these Claude 4 models and Claude Code.
Yeah.
But, nothing's perfect. Did the sources mention any limitations or things to be aware of? Got to have the full picture.
Yes, they included a section on limitations for a balanced view. First, the usage limits are real, even on the paid Pro and Max plans.
Ah, okay. Not infinite.
No. If you're working on very complex projects with a lot of back and forth or feeding it extremely large context repeatedly, you can still hit those limits faster than you might expect. You have to be mindful of your usage.
Okay, so not truly unlimited usage, just higher limits. Good to know. need to manage expectations there.
Right. Second, no multimodal outputs. Anthropic is laser-focused on text and coding. Don't expect native voice interactions, image generation, or video capabilities from these models.
Got it. They're specializing, not trying to do everything visually or with audio, just code and text.
Right. Third, the standard web interface, Claude.AI, while it's improved, can still be a bottleneck. The source says it doesn't expose the full power that these models have when accessed via the API, or especially the Claude Code SDK in the terminal.
Okay, so to really unlock the beast, you got to go deeper than the website. Use the integrations.
Pretty much. That's where the professional workflow really shines. And fourth, as we discussed, the price point is professional.
Right.
That $100 a month for the max plan isn't like a casual hobbyist expense.
Right.
It's priced for developers who expect a significant return on that investment through increased productivity and better code quality.
Got it. So usage limits are there. It's text only. The API SDK is where the real power is, and it's priced for pros. That sounds like a pretty fair picture of where things stand right now.
It gives you the complete view from the sources, pros and cons.
So what's the final verdict from the sources on all this? If you're a developer, what does this all mean? Where does this leave us?
The bottom line is that if you do any amount of serious coding, building, or software development, the Claude 4 series is described as a genuine, tangible leap forward.
A real leap, not just incremental.
Yeah, the reports highlight the improvements in reasoning, handling complex instructions, goal persistence, and raw code quality as real, measurable advances that should save significant time and reduce a lot of that frustration we started with.
And that strategic focus on coding, they think it's paying off.
The sources believe Anthropic's decision to really double down on being the best coding-specific tool, rather than trying to be maybe a mediocre generalist, feels like a smart and ultimately winning move. The result is a platform they see as rapidly becoming an indispensable partner for modern software development workflows.
That's a really strong endorsement, indispensable partner.
Yeah.
It sounds like they're saying this isn't just, a little update. It's a pretty significant shift in what AI can do for coding.
Yeah. The AI coding revolution, according to the analysis, isn't just something that's coming in the future. It's here, and it's being led by these kinds of specialized, high-capability tools.
So what does that leave us with, for you, the listener, to really think about after hearing all this?
I guess the question raised by the source's concluding remarks is whether you'll be using tomorrow's capabilities to build your projects, or if you'll find yourself still wrestling with yesterday's tools. It feels like a point where the landscape for developers is really fundamentally shifting.
Using tomorrow's capabilities or wrestling with yesterday's tools. That's definitely a thought to mull over. Where do you want to be?